I, Council will call this meeting to order. For the record, it is January 20th, 2026 at 4:34 PM. We'll begin this afternoon's work session with roll call attendance.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilman Cavanagh. Councilman Taylor. Councilwoman Strader. Councilman Whitlock.
Here.
Councilwoman Little Roberts. Councilman Overton.
Here.
Mayor Simison.
Here. Next item up is adoption of the agenda.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Overton.
there are no changes to the agenda this evening. I move to approve the agenda as published.
Second.
Have a motion second to approve the agenda as published. Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the agenda is agreed to. First item up is the consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Overton.
I move that we approve the consent agenda, the mayor to sign and clerk to attest.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the consent agenda is agreed to. There are no items moved from the consent agenda, so we'll move on to item 8, which is the fiscal year 2026 budget amendment in the amount of $5,171 for Drone First Responder Program. And it's over to Captain Leslie.
Thanks, Mayor, City Council. So we're back after our meeting last week. My numbers weren't quite even, so we met with the finance staff and prepared the budget amendment. We're $5,171 short of being zero on that. I also got the numbers for you for a secondary site or additional sites to the south. We talked about better coverage to the south with the drone first responders. We've identified 2 locations that would be ideal to move south to improve that response time. those costs per sites are around $68,700 per site. So
Thank you, and you're forgiven on the 51.7, at least from me. I can't speak for the rest of council, though.
I appreciate that, Mayor.
And council, I did have a brief conversation and said, I didn't want to delay the conversation on this one, but maybe during the budget process, we could discuss whether or not a third one made sense in the upcoming budget, such our fourth
Fourth site, yeah.
I mean,
And-
conversation.
Yeah, and just to clarify, the 3 sites that we currently have are creating an ideal response time of 2 minutes, which is the target time on target that we would like to have. Does not mean we can't cover into the south with a critical incident and get a drone there. It's just going to have less time to be there and to have to come back, and take a little bit longer to get there. But the flight distance, we can cover the entire city with the 3 sites that we have.
Thank you. It's not dissimilar to the challenge we're having with our Parks and Rec and our planning and zoning commissioners. We've got a large blank spot in South Meridian with low coverage. So, sorry. Just searching for someone in South Meridian that wants to serve. It's hard out there. So, council, any questions on this budget amendment? Okay, then do I have a motion?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilwoman Will Roberts.
I am honored because it's rare that we get to put something forth that can potentially change how a department does business. And I think this is going to greatly improve efficiency and just the officer's time. And so I would like to make the motion that we approve the budget amendment for $5,171 for drone first responder Axon Peregrine.
Second.
Have a motion, a second to approve item 8. Is there discussion on the motion? If not, clerk call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Cavanagh.
Aye.
Taylor.
Aye.
Strader. Whitlock.
Aye.
Little Roberts.
Aye.
Overton.
Aye.
All ayes, motion carries. The item is agreed to. We look forward to seeing this move forward and get implemented. And I'd like to say hopefully great things to ensue, but that means that there's bad things happening for good things to ensue in the process. So, yes. Thank you. Okay, with that, we'll move on to item 9, Mayor's Youth Advisory Council quarterly update. I'll turn this over to Sahan for an introduction.
Mr. Mayor, City Council members, thank you so much for once again providing us with the opportunity to come before you and provide some updates on some of the goings on with our Mayor's Youth Advisory Council for the City of Meridian. I'll just start with some brief introductory remarks before turning things over to my friend Connor, who will lead you through some updates that we've had through the semester so far and what we've got planned ahead. As many of you are aware, the school year starts earlier every year, seemingly. So our MIAC meetings in previous years, they typically started in September. The past couple of years, we've had our first meeting start in August. And so as of this moment, we've had 8 general council meetings. Those are our big meetings that are held right here in council chambers. And we have about 9 left for the remainder of the academic year. So thinking of August 2025 to May 2026. And so if any of you or if anyone who is visiting City Hall ever sees a group of teenagers here on a Monday afternoon, that's what those meetings are. You might hear some strange noises, nothing to worry about. But we're delighted to host the students here from grades 9 through 12 and to really give them an opportunity to learn more about local government, to hone their skills as future leaders, and to serve their community by coming up with community service projects of their own. And so with that, I will welcome Connor up here to introduce himself and guide you through some of these activities that have been taking place.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Connor. I am a sophomore at Renaissance High School, and I am the Vice Chair of Government Affairs for MIAC. So today I'm basically going to talk to you a little bit about what we've been doing this past semester, I should say. So first I'm going to talk about our 3 main pillars. Our first pillar is leadership, and then we have community service and government affairs. So let's talk about our first pillar, leadership. We had a couple guest speakers come this year to talk about our leadership development and help our leadership development. Our first one was Karen Manthe. She was with Comedy Sports, which is a like a improv club basically that she participated in, and she was kind of imparting her wisdom of improv onto us and allowing us to become more brave speakers and leaders within our city, basically. And then we had Mary Cummer from iCrimp, and she did this activity where we had to basically complete a task without knowing what it was. So we had all these bands that we like strapped to our fingers, and we all had to work together to complete a task together without basically knowing what it was. And it was a blast. We also had the Treasure Valley Youth Safety Summit at Wahoo's, which was so much fun. We got to drive go-karts and learn about how horrible it is to text and drive, and drunk driving, all that kind of stuff. The police department brought drunk goggles to show us what it was like to like golf while impaired. So that was really fun. Now I want to talk a little bit about, we have one more slide on leadership development. We had our kickoff at Wahoo's with bowling, where we kind of met all of the new MIAC members that were coming in this year. So we did that at the very beginning of the year, and it was really fun because we got to, meet everyone in a kind of familiar environment with bowling and just kind of laid back, meeting new people and stuff. Then we had our Friendsgiving, where it was pretty much just a big Thanksgiving with all our MIAC friends, and it was really fun because we got to eat a bunch of food and play games, and very similar to our holiday party. But our holiday party, of course, was based more around Christmas, and I even dressed up in a bunch of Christmas stuff for that, which was really fun. And it really helped our recruitment and bringing in new people, because we always suggested that MIACers bring friends to these parties, and they kind of get a taste of what MIAC is from an outsider. Okay, now on to our community service. We had a couple community service opportunities this year. We had our Trunk or Treat, where we set up a booth and handed out candy in kind of a unique way. We decided to have ducks in a little bowl, and people had to scoop out the ducks, and if they had a sticker on the duck, then they got like a bigger candy than if they had no sticker, which was kind of a unique thing our MIACers came up with on how to make this experience more fun. And then we had the C-Spot Walk, which I did not go to, but we had a registration for the Idaho Humane Society. So I'm pretty sure it was a kind of outreach about adopting dogs and that kind of stuff. So yeah, our community service coordinator could talk to you all about that. But we also had letters to veterans, where everyone wrote, as many letters as they wanted, but everyone wrote at least one letter to a veteran in November. And it was kind of just a great way to celebrate Veterans Day and, have a good community service oriented activity in one of our MIAC meetings. And then we rounded off November with Rake Up Meridian. I and a couple of our MIAC members went to a house in Meridian and helped rake up all their leaves when they weren't able to. And it's, of course, more of a widespread event in Meridian, and it really helped, help the people that can't, rake up their own leaves so their grass doesn't die. We also had some government affairs guest speakers. So Emily Kane came to talk about Trias Politica, which talked about the branches of government and how different the federal, state, county, and municipal levels of government are, and kind of the differences between them, which was really cool to learn about. And then we had Aaron Bennett, just this last meeting, come to talk to us about advocacy and lobbying, which I'll get to, about Youth Lobbying Day, which is something I myself am planning to go to. she was with the American Heart Association, so she talked a lot about how her past experiences with Youth Lobby Day and answered any questions we had about lobbying in general to all the Mayakers. Oh, there we go. We also had our City Hall tour where we toured the City Hall that we're in right now, and we learned about the Parks and Recreation Department. We learned about the city attorney's office, I'm pretty sure was also there. And, you know, all the departments in our City Hall, and it was just a great experience for everyone to kind of go away from the usual and learn something new in a more of a active setting. So we have quite a few things up for this next semester, and one of those is next meeting, we're having ACHD bring our or their snowplow vehicles, and we're going to be able to like go get in the vehicles and learn how what to do when around them on the road, because many of them, us including me, can drive. So it's very important to know what to do around these snowplows, even if there hasn't been much snow. Then we're also having Youth Lobby Day coming February 5th, which will be pretty exciting because, well, we're going to be able to go lobby to senators and talk about issues to them from a child point of view, which I'm really excited for to go and do. We have a community service panel coming up in February. We have Mad City Money coming in February as well. This is really exciting to me as well, as we get to learn about budgeting and kind of real life things that you'll have to know after high school and college and all that. We have Do the Right Day, which I went to last year, and that was a great experience. We ran a little booth at Meridian Middle School and kind of just helped spread awareness about the day and the holiday, and it was really fun just hanging out with people, handing out stickers and letting people write cards to people and all that. So that was really fun. And then we rounded off with our senior prom, where at the senior center, all of the seniors will go to a little dance like it's a high school prom, but for seniors, because I mean, it's been a long time since they went to a prom, and it lets them re-experience those things and, you know, have a great time with people that are in high school that'll help them through it. Yeah. And so, yeah, I think that's it. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you, Connor. Council, any questions?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Bullock.
great presentation. It's been a few years since I was at senior. Relate. This is extensive in terms of all the different things that you're doing and all of the insights that you're gaining into leadership and city governance and state governance. Where does this take you, do you think? What does your MIAC experience mean to Connor's future?
Well, I, for one, would love to experience some sort of local government later in life. Like, after I have a stable income, I want to be an engineer. So maybe after a couple years of doing that, trying to get into local government would be really cool. But yeah, I think it's really fun.
And this follow-up, and this experience has whetted your appetite for that and
Yes.
made you excited. Good. Excellent.
Additional questions, comments?
Thank you.
Thank you, Connor. Appreciate
Thank
you. Doing it solo. Your teammate wasn't able to
Yeah.
make it, but we appreciate you being here and taking the full report.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And it is great. We still do have, I spent some of the time where we have, and I just blanked on his name, who came back from Stanford. Hoyun came back and sat down, and, you know, so we know the influence that MIAC has on some people and their desire to serve. And, as he's going through and rounding out his years at Stanford, trying to figure out how he gets back and how he continues to stay engaged. So definitely can lay the groundwork for people early in life. So appreciate it very much. Okay, with that, we'll move on to item 10, which is the continued conversation around commercial property assessed capital expenditure or CPACE program discussion. Invite Curtis back up to continue the dialogue.
Well, thank you for inviting me back. I do have some virtual guests that will participate this afternoon. So again, my name's Curtis Calder, Economic Development Administrator with the city. And 2 weeks ago, we gave a presentation on the CPACE program. That material, I placed it back in your packet, so I don't know if you'd like me to go back over it, but I'm happy to do so. I think probably a better starting point would be to introduce the guests and have them explain CPACE in their own words because they're in that industry. And that may go a long ways towards answering your questions. So with that, is Chris Robbins on the Zoom link?
Yes,
Great.
I am. Hi, everybody. Thank you.
Okay, well, I'll introduce Chris and let him have, explain in his own words what CPACE is and what it can do for the city of Meridian.
Thank you. Chris, welcome.
Great. Thank you very much for having me and for your time. So by way of background, Chris Robbins, I've been in the CPACE world since kind of the beginning, about 12 years now. My background prior to CPACE, structured finance, commercial real estate, energy finance. And I live out here in the San Francisco Bay Area. And in talking to Curtis last week, we had a great conversation and kind of walked through some of the initial conversations and questions that you have kind of talked through. And along with my partner Joe Eufrat and some folks over at Gilmore Bell that do a lot of the PACE financing from a legal perspective and have been very involved in the Idaho programs. I put some of these talking points together. What would be the best use of your time in terms of what you would like? I mean, I could go through and spend a lot of time talking about, CPACE and from the various, lenses and stakeholder groups, but what would be helpful for me to try to impart during this time that we have together?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Schrader.
I read the presentation that was attached, and I thought that was very helpful. I kind of just wanted to check on the structure of it and really understand the potential volume that could come from this program. So, Mr. Mayor, if you don't mind, like my first question is just how often do senior lenders give, is it effectively a super priority position through the CPACE program? Because the senior mortgage holders, right, have to basically agree to this structure. And so I just want to kind of understand the trade-offs. How often do you see this? How often do you see senior lenders agree to that priority of payment position changing? And maybe just kind of walk me through what kind of volume you expect to see in Idaho. My understanding is there's been one deal that's closed in Idaho in 2024, but if there's kind of a big pipeline of it coming, I'd want to understand that. So those are some of my questions.
No, and those are great questions. And the senior lender consent has been, I would say, one of the challenges, especially in the early days of PACE, where maybe 4 or 5 states had actually amended their legislation to allow PACE to be accessed. But there's been north of, per PACE Nation, 12.5 billion of PACE financed since inception. And the vast majority of those deals have come with lender consent. And what we have experienced, and I think what the industry has experienced from a trend perspective over the last 3 years, is more and more lenders, and this could be banks, it could be debt funds, and so forth, really kind of digging in and understanding what PACE is and how it kind of works in conjunction with their senior first lien debt. And once they do, the feedback that we get is, oh, this is just like traditional assessment financing that's been around for a long time, and we deal with it, although it's voluntary. And there have been, I would say, the thing that we do, and I think a lot of our other peers in the market do, is instead of asking a senior lender if they're okay with PACE as part of a capital stack, it's really spending the time to kind of understand, one, how much PACE is applicable at a project level. What are kind of directional terms? So when that conversation happens with a senior lender, and we support a lot of these conversations, it's not, are you okay with CPACEs? Here is how the sponsor, the property owner, the developer is looking to capitalize their project. It's with equity, it's with some CPACE, and with 40 to 50% first lien debt. And once senior lenders understand that kind of the mechanics of the CPACE, which it's not a traditional lien, like a first deed of trust on a property or a second. It's an assessment at the property level. And because of that structure, it can never accelerate, can never be called in the event of non-payment of a property tax bill and associated assessments. It can also be prepaid at any time. And so it's very quiet, flexible financing. And if I'm sitting in a senior lender's kind of the head of credit chair, I'm looking at, is this financing accretive to the project? Is there debt service coverage that makes sense? So I'm looking at it from an underwriting perspective. And what we're seeing from a PACE plus first lien debt on projects is, anywhere from 65 to 70% for new construction, combined PACE and senior debt. And then a little north of that for reimbursement projects where one can look back up to 3 years in most states and reimburse themselves and use that liquidity to maybe recapitalize or right-size a loan, or for other capital improvements, tenant improvements, and commissions to stabilize a project. I'll stop there, see if that answered your question.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilwoman Schrader.
That's very helpful. Maybe just to drill down on that a little bit, does the program administrator take on any risk because the debt can't be accelerated? And my understanding is that it's kind of a current pay situation. So in the event of non-payment, at that point, you would have a default, right, under the PACE loan. And so help walk me through, if there's a default, how a PACE lender recovers and what the program administrator from a city perspective's role would be in that type of a situation. Has there ever been a bankruptcy of a PACE loan? How did that play out? Maybe just an example would help crystallize kind of the priority of payments and how that would work.
So that's a great question. And in terms of a project where the property tax is not paid. So generally what we see happening, and this has happened in the senior lenders' covenants will have been tripped, and they will move kind of to enforce their remedies, rights and remedies under their loan documents. And in many cases, and these discussions happen kind of prior to PACE being placed on a parcel kind of during underwriting, the senior lender will look at, okay, if things go bad here or sideways, what is the outcome going to be for me, the senior lender? And it's typically, we're going to want to keep property taxes current as we work through our, work through the issue. In the event that they're not kept current, what's due and payable at any given time from a PACE perspective is the current property tax bill and associated assessments, of which this would be one, a new one, and any default or delinquent property tax payments and assessments. And so what cannot happen is the PACE provider saying, okay, this is a $5 million PACE financing and we did not get our assessment payment. We can't foreclose or start a process on the $5 million. It's just that outstanding payment. And so that kind of ties back into the senior lender conversations where they're like, okay, so maybe I reserve, a payment, or in our underwriting, I understand that if we're in a workout situation, I might have to, and we need to keep the taxes current, I'll need to factor this in as well. From a city and a PACE administrator perspective, it's still pretty quiet because it's on the tax roll. So there's not a whole lot to do. And I don't know if Jacob from Gilmore Bell is on the line as well, and would defer to him. They've done a lot of the underlying PACE legislation and guideline work in Idaho. But we're a PACE program administrator in California. And it would just be monitoring to see what's happening with the payment of the property taxes and assessments.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Schrader.
But just so I understand, so the PACE lender, it sounds like, is an unsecured creditor with right? Because you have a first mortgage holder already. And so would that be accurate? Would it be an unsecured creditor? And would the source of repayment in the event of a default of a PACE loan eventually be like around the, like would the transfer of would it be effectively a lien against the property and against the title, so that if a new lender looked to purchase the property, they would have to clear that out before they could transfer it?
Yes, that is correct. So it would just,
Okay.
it would accrue like any other unpaid property taxes.
Mm-hmm. But they're not property taxes, just to be clear, right? I mean, that's the stream of repayment is the same as property taxes, but it's actually an unsecured claim, right?
It is a tax lien that is assessed on the underlying parcel or parcels that are being improved. So it sits just under, ad valorem taxes and some other assessments. So it would not be expunged or could not be expunged from the tax roll.
Got it. Okay, that's really helpful.
And we can get some more clarity on that as well through Gilmore Bell, who may be on this remotely as well.
Yes, Jacob is here. Jacob, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I mean, no, that's right. I mean, like Chris kind of said at the top of his comments. I mean, if you think of this as like a traditional assessment on a property, that's exactly what it is. I mean, there's an assessment lien that's put on the property that is in, as Chris mentioned, it's, just below a lien for taxes and other assessments, but it's superior to any mortgage lien on the property. And so that's really the security for the assessment itself.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Schrader.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. So it really, like, this is a program that is highly dependent on first mortgage lenders in Idaho being comfortable with giving a super priority position to this gap financing. And one of the biggest risks that I am trying to wrap my head around is just around the cost of program administration and the amount of time, city staff would have to put into this type of a program. And will there be volume and deals to actually support it? So I'm kind of curious, like, do you see a big pipeline of projects coming in Idaho? Are you aware of a reason that we would, besides that it's just generally spreading this type of financing, but like, help me wrap my head
Yes,
around the risks to the
no, that's
city of program administration, setting this whole thing up.
yeah, that's a great question, and I'll maybe take the first part, and Jacob, if you can take kind of part number two in terms of what you've seen in terms of program administration, kind of time to set up a program and kind of administer projects as they come to the city. In terms of the pipeline, absolutely, we are seeing a healthy pipeline in Idaho. We've been actually, and the marketplace has been waiting. Had been waiting for Idaho to amend their legislation to allow PACE to occur. We have a couple projects that we have spoken with a local developer about ourselves in terms of their interest in accessing and exploring PACE for projects in Meridian. And I would say the majority of the projects that we see kind of fall into two categories. PACE being used for new construction, and typically, it's 25 to 30, sometimes 35% of the capital stack from a PACE perspective. The remaining balance up to that 65 or 70% being filled with traditional senior debt, construction lending. And then the second, and those projects range anywhere from, or financings from a PACE perspective range anywhere from, 2 to 3 million to, 20 to 30 million plus of PACE. And then the second is this reimbursement that we talked about, where a building owner, let's say, that has recently delivered a project, and because of the capital markets and the what's kind of gone on in the last couple of years, we have they might have construction debt that has come due or coming due, and they need some time to stabilize the property. And this is where we're seeing as well a lot of lender consent coming into play, where there's a really solid relationship between the sponsor and the lender, but the lender needs some relief, needs to get maybe a sizable pay down of their principal balance, and updating appropriately reserve requirements. And so that owner can go back and reimburse themselves for 30% of the hard and soft costs typically, and use those funds to pay down that senior lender and allow them more time to stabilize, or come in with a new first lien lender in PACE to retire in full that construction debt. So absolutely, there's a growing interest and window in various counties in Idaho, and we've seen projects coming across our desk for the last year and a half.
Yeah, and then
Yeah. Oh, sorry, passing the baton to you, Jacob.
Yeah, and then in terms of the program administrator, as you may be aware, I mean, the Idaho statute, I mean, what the program administrator is anticipated to do on these CPACE deals is kind of review applications as they come in to the city, just to make sure that they're meeting all the requirements set forth, in the CPACE program that's adopted by the city. that being said, I mean, the way these CPACE deals work is, you have a CPACE lender, you have the city that would come in and put the assessment lien on the property. But once the city, does the initial putting the assessment lien on the property, it assigns all of its rights over to the CPACE lender. So the CPACE lender is the one that would enforce the lien if it ever got to that point. And so, and because of that, the CPACE lender is really the one or the entity that is reviewing the application and the accompanying materials in depth, just to make sure that they're everything's on the up and up. So really, from the city's perspective, the program administrator would just be the entity just coming in just to make sure the application is, everything's there in the application, almost like a sort of a check the box sort of a thing. I would also mention too, I mean, to the extent that the city didn't want to do that work, the statute allows the city to hire an outside program administrator to come in and do that on its behalf as well.
And then one final part on the program administration and time. I believe the statute allows for the city, if they wanted to levy some fees or charge some fees. I think it's up to $500 for an application fee, and then some other amount capped at $50,000. And what we have seen in the market as the market has grown to now 41 states have amended their legislation to allow PACE to occur. A lot of the markets are looking, a lot of the counties and cities are looking at this as kind of an economic development, option or capital, program that can be accessed by their constituents. And or kind of the way that we see a lot of cities look at the fees is, what is fair and equitable? We don't want to, stick our citizens with a hefty fee just because we can, but we also want to cover our costs as appropriate, to stand up and manage a program. And I believe, and Jake, correct me if I'm wrong, that you have the authority to put whatever fee schedule that you want into place, and also to, as deals get going and you see how much time may or may not be needed to administer the program, is to amend those fee schedules at your discretion.
Mr. Mayor.
If I could follow up on just that one question, do you typically find that people do an hourly fee for administering the work, or is a flat fee, or is a fee based upon total value of the project? Just trying to understand.
That's a great question. And what we see, generally speaking, is there is typically an application fee, and we see that run anywhere from $200 to $500, depending upon the size of a project, especially in the kind of the initial kind of standing up of a program. And then in a lot of states, there is a percentage, a fee that is a percentage of the funded amount that is capped at a certain level. And we've seen kind of step down. So from, 1 million to 3 million, it might be a 1% fee, from 3 to 5. So it's typically, in most of the cities and the counties that we've talked to, they're like, we want to make this as easy as possible for everybody. And we want to make it fair and reasonable. So, there could be a fee that is 1% of the amount capped at $20,000 or $10,000. But again, that's kind of the way that we see it. We also see some other places that, kind of go the opposite way, but they don't get a whole lot of deals done.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Taylor.
A follow-up on the sort of the fees. If we opt to do this and we choose to have a third party administrator, Does the city still establish what those fees would be, or does this third-party entity who's administering it establish the fees?
Jacob, how have you seen that work with like SRS and others?
Yeah, I think under the Idaho statutes, I mean, I'd have to go back and double check, but I'm fairly certain it was written so that the city establishes those fees. It wouldn't be the program administrator. It would be set forth in the the CPACE program that you set up.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Schrader.
Isn't that a key risk for us to evaluate? My understanding is that in Idaho, the application and servicing fees are capped. So I think that there's I guess what I would want to make sure is that we had some rationale that if we were going to set up this program, even if we were outsourcing it to a third party, that the program would be self-sustaining. In other words, that the application fees and servicing fees would cover whatever we're paying a third party to administer it. In Idaho specifically, have you seen a way that cities are handling that kind of risk? I know Idaho is kind of early in the adoption of this type of financing.
Jacob, do you want to use Utah maybe as a, because Utah went with a third party at a state level, and then it's kind of reverted back to cities and counties running their programs?
Yeah, I mean, Utah is a little bit different. I mean, in Utah, I can just say if cities and counties, on all the deals we've done where a city and county has, been the governmental entity that levies the assessment lien on the property, they have not traditionally taken a fee. I mean, there's not, they've taken the approach, there's not a heavy lift on reviewing the materials as they come in, and so they just haven't taken a fee. I would say we did do 2 deals with Coeur d'Alene last year. That being said, we didn't have any direct communication with the city there. And so I don't know what they did as far as their fee goes, but we could go back and look at that and just see if we can figure out what Coeur d'Alene decided to do for their fees.
And I think that's the question. I mean, Curtis has identified for me how much time he thinks he'll need to set it from his day-to-day job to set up the program. But once the program is actually set up, this goes back to my original comment in terms of asking the question is like, okay, if it's how much the size of the project actually, impact the amount of work that needs to be done by the administrator. If it's just looking to make sure that the financiers checked all the boxes and, the sign the right paperwork and throughput it compared to, well, for every 1,000 square feet, you can expect to spend 1 hour, but, what's the metric to help us determine if we were to establish a fee? Because $50,000 is half a year's salary for someone that just has to pass paperwork. Seems like a pretty easy, more than enough to capture, but that's not typically how we do business. We typically want people to pay, and you want to set something that's fair and equitable. How do we determine what's fair and equitable from the start compared to after doing 5 projects and realizing we either way overcharged or way undercharged?
Yeah, and I think so. To your question, my answer would be the former. Not necessarily size dependent, or size translates to more work or less work depending upon which way you go up or down the size scale. The capital, the provider of the financing is the one that's going to be doing the underwriting and the work. To Jacob's point, kind of the program administrator, just checking the boxes to make sure that the structure of the financing falls within the guidelines of the program. And then once the assessment's placed on the property, as Jacob was mentioning, the transfer of the rights and remedies and everything else is going to, be transferred from the city to the capital provider. And so we haven't seen, and we've done deals in 15, 16 states and a lot of different counties and cities. And we haven't run across a program where we've seen a heavy lift by staff. Not to say that the first 4 or 5 are going to be kind of a learning experience. And, that might be, we've heard of other cities look at, so, all right, maybe we have a flat fee of X, $2,500 or $3,000 or $5,000. And then, in 12 months, we can go back and see, to somebody's point, are we overcharging? Are we charging, are we not charging enough? And then kind of reassess at that point.
And I'm just guessing here, but if the cities took it back in Utah or were giving it back to them, it was either viewed as not that much work, or it was producing more revenue than necessary, or the state couldn't get to it because they didn't have the resources to actually get it done quickly. I don't know why else cities would say, yeah, we'll take it back if it's overly cost burdensome to them or timely.
Yeah, I mean, I can jump in there because I've been working in Utah CPA since the beginning. It's actually none of the above why
Okay,
the state
great.
opted not to do it. The state just, they set up the program, the person that set it up, who was at the state, left the state. And then when she left, no one else at the state really had any appetite for doing a state program. So they just said, we're not doing it at a state level. Cities and counties, if you want to do it, you can do it, but we're not going to do it at a state level.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Taylor.
Yeah, Chris and Jacob, last time we had some questions, we were kind of drilling into trying to understand how this program essentially allows for lower interest rates for this type of financing. Can you just give some insight? Is it the length, like the length of the terms? What is it? What is that sort of, little nugget that allows for a better interest rate with CPACE financing versus a traditional loan?
Yeah, no, that's, thanks for bringing that up. So, traditional banks, will bring in, deposits and use those deposits and lend those back out. And, as a kind of a first lien, or second lien in some cases, debt instrument. The nature of assessment kind of financing, there are a lot of interested buyers of this paper in the marketplace, because it's in a lot of cases looked as like muni bonds or municipal financing, where most of the buyers of this product are insurance companies kind of down the road. And so they have access. It's a different type of not only attachment point, but it's a different type of financial product that allows for a much broader base of buyers or, people providing capital for this work. And where we're seeing this going is most PACE prices off the 10-year treasury. In some cases, it can price off the 5-year treasury. This is from a lender perspective. And, spreads 2-3 years ago were 350 or 400 basis points over whatever that benchmark was. Now they're coming down. We're seeing a lot of spreads in the high 200s, low 300s. And we think that there'll be continued kind of pricing compression. The more of these PACE deals that get funded in the marketplace, there's just going to be more money coming in. And so it's and that's where a lot of the banks will say, well, this is accretive because if I'm lending at, say, 7% and PACE is at 6.25%, that blended cost of capital is going to be beneficial to the project, to the sponsor. And what a lot of these lenders are saying, and I'm kind of de-risking myself because my first lien attachment point might be now 40% instead of 65%. And I'll allow PACE to kind of fill in the rest there. So I jumped around there a little bit, but hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah, that's helpful. Mr. Mayor, if I could, just a quick follow-up.
Councilman Taylor.
Kind of curious, you mentioned, you said this, and I'm just trying to make sure I understand it, kind of priced off the 10-year treasury note just a little bit. I know that's an important benchmark for a lot of commercial loans. So does it track the 10-year treasury note kind of as that fluctuates a little bit, or is it kind of have an adverse sort of or inverse relationship as that goes up? Some of this might go down. Just kind of, that's a really interesting concept to me. I want to grasp that a little bit more.
Yeah, so as the benchmark fluctuates, once the assessment is placed, this is fixed rate financing. So once the assessment has been placed on the property and the capital funded, it won't move. It's a fixed rate. There's a amortization schedule that is provided, and that's kind of what the tax assessments are based off of. So you know what your payment will be every time you pay your tax bill until either the PACE is retired or the term sunsets. What does change, and this is where the PACE lender kind of group out there can move the spread up or down based upon what that benchmark's doing to keep the financing in a place that it's still accretive to a project, if that's a deal that they want to do.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Schrader.
My other questions are kind of along the same vein, just really two questions. This doesn't seem like something that would work well for single family homes to me, but I'm kind of curious, just generally, what types of projects are we likely to see if we implemented this program that we would not otherwise see? So that's a question that I have. And then along those lines, you know, out of the projects you referred to that people are looking at Meridian, are those greenfield, or are these primarily projects that have gone sideways and they haven't stabilized and they need gap financing to fill an air ball with their situation in the multifamily market?
Yeah, so to your first question, correct, single family homes, this would not be applicable. It's typically, 5 units and greater. And then really any type of non-residential development, which would include, we're working, and when I say we, I'm talking about the industry generally, on manufacturing plants. We're looking at a biochar facility in the Northeast right now. But the majority of the projects would fall into multifamily, would fall into mixed use, office, retail, industrial, and hospitality. So those are the kind of the primary. And then, there's cold storage, there's data centers, there's all sorts of other applicable asset classes that kind of sit, outside of that. In terms of the types of projects, we're seeing a lot of kind of urban reuse, conversion, redevelopment as well. My understanding is you've got a block across City Hall that is in need of some work to bring that back into the community. And so we see a lot of kind of adaptive reuse projects that have a number of quantifiable benefits for communities in terms of bringing back jobs and tax basis and people and vibrancy to neighborhoods. The reimbursement projects, I wouldn't necessarily put them in a kind of a distressed box. There are, of course, projects that are just, underwater, and we don't kind of look at PACE as coming in and being that silver bullet to help kind of fix a project that needs to, is not fixable. But more of a really good project, a good sponsor, kind of bad timing in that, PACE in some cases will come in and provide that liquidity so that that project, either one, can that owner can sign a lease and know that they have funds to do the TI build out and pay commissions, and again bring business into the community. Did that answer your question?
Mr. Mayor. Yes, it
Okay.
did. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Council, any other questions for our guests this evening? Chris, Jacob, I want to say thank you for lending us your time this evening to help get some questions answered. I don't know that we're done yet with this conversation even tonight, but just want to make sure we got that out on the record for you to say thank you.
Thank you so much for allowing us
Thank
to
you.
participate.
Chris, I didn't know if you had more to present on this, or I'm happy to give my 2 cents for you unless you have others to say.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, the only other thing I would add is I did speak with City of Rexburg just to get an idea of how much time they actually spent putting the program together, standing it up. It was a team effort on their part. They're a small city. So they had probably 2 or 3 different individuals. So they had to ask how many hours each person worked on it. And the cumulative number was about 50 hours of staff time. So with regard to the setup of the program, that's probably about what we would expect to see. And I certainly have capacity to do that. I can't do it all in one sitting, but I can spread it out and work on it here and there. And I have the benefit of other cities putting these together in advance of me, so I can look at their templates. And I talked to City of Boise as well. They took a little bit longer time just because of their process, but it wasn't that heavy of a lift for them either. So probably about the same when you add it all up. That's all I had.
Yeah, I was essentially going to say that, at least from my perspective, through the first one, generally I would be supportive of setting a fee that's based upon hourly time invested, as a start. From what I've heard, this would not be onerous enough, no different than setting up the program where you might have to invest some time. But I think after doing 1 or 2, we could quickly figure out, do we have the bandwidth, or do we need to offload, or what would be that appropriate amount to do it? If you were interested in going a different direction, that's fine as well. But I think that's at least what I hate is to overcharge on the first one, unless we say, well, we'll charge this and we'll refund it if that's not how much it takes. But even if you're going to contract it out, I think a contractor would want to know what they're going to receive and a set wage or a set amount per hour's work seems to be more appropriate than a dollar figure based upon it. And not going to get into my good friends and the sell homes where sometimes there's that question mark, is just because the home is worth more, the cost you receive, is that the fair and appropriate way? And I don't know that's the way we want to do business. But we want to recapture our hours, whether we look at those 50 hours and build that in that it takes to build the program, or we say that's our cost, that's our contribution to the program, but we want to be compensated for those who actually use the program on a fair basis. But personally, in my conversations with Curtis and what I've learned, I'm comfortable recommending that we consider moving forward with this project, but happy to see if you all believe that's true or not, and if you need to have further dialogue before getting to that place yourselves. So
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Overton.
And a huge shout out to Jacob and Chris for helping with this tonight, along with Curtis. You know, I don't ever want to look at this as something we would add to our city based upon one project. I got to keep telling myself that what we're looking at here is adding a tool to our toolbox for economic development. And getting to the point, or getting past the point of trying to decide how much money we think we need to be compensated for, when really we don't have that idea right now. We don't know the size of the project or what's going to come in the door. I'd much rather try to stay focused on, is this going to be a benefit to our community? And if so, it's the right thing to do, or it's not. I've learned a lot since the first time I met with Curtis on this. I think this is a tool that can help our city in certain situations. It can help certain projects and situations. I think that a lot of the questions that were asked were valuable. Some of them, quite honestly. People on this dais have tremendous amounts of information in areas that I don't, and I'm glad you asked those high-level financing questions. But I don't think as a city, we're going to be dealing with having to answer those questions as we administer these projects. I think our role is going to be much different on how we administer it. So far, everything I've heard from what the load will be on our city versus the benefit to our community is positive. And I would be supportive of this moving forward as we get closer to adopting.
Councilman Strader.
My concern is about putting a lot of resources into setting up a program if it's premature. And I think Idaho is pretty early in its adoption curve of this type of financing. Like what I'd be looking for would be, I think the main risk that we run is that there is a cap built into this program of what we can charge reasonably for servicing fees. And I think I'd want to make sure that we can capture, no different than our kind of parks philosophy. I want to see that we can capture our cost of service and our cost of administering this program properly. That's my main concern. So that's something I think I would need to get, working through with you guys as you try to develop what this program would look like, a rationale around what type of servicing fees we would charge and why we think that we're comfortable that that would cover our cost of administering the program. The other aspect I'd like to see, I could not agree more. I don't think it makes any sense to set up a program just for one project. I think I'd want to see a pipeline of potential projects. Like, I think that would help me feel comfortable that there is demand for this tool. If it was a pipeline of like 5 projects that we thought, one of these, chances are one of these would come to fruition. I think that kind of information would help me feel comfortable that we're investing in something durable. So it's not a no for me. It's just, I feel like it's a little early and that we need to develop a sense of a pipeline of projects and kind of keep working on this and work on a rationale for how we capture our cost of doing it.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Taylor.
is there anything that would prevent us if we spent the time and resources to do that here in the city and then decide that we wanted to pivot in a few years and have a third party administer that? As far as I understand it, we have that flexibility. Is that correct?
Correct. And Curtis, what is the current cap and state code on max cap recapture?
So statute is $500 max application fee and then 1% for servicing fee up to a maximum of $50,000. So that's the absolute statutory maximums.
I don't think there's a question, would we be able to recapture? It's what's the appropriate amount to set for the recapture and how do we get there? Yes. Yes, Chris.
In terms of the pipeline, happy post today to have one of the larger developers in your city get in touch with you and talk about their projects. I didn't want to, just for, non-disclosure and everything else, confidentiality, put forth names right now, but this group would be, I believe, very open to have that conversation with you. And then also to have, get their thoughts on, why as a developer would this be of interest to you from a capital option?
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Whitlock.
Kind of always operate under a philosophy of, I want to be first to be second. And I think there are some others that have blazed the trail on this for us. And my understanding is that the city of Boise has put out some pretty good promotional materials on this, and they're really pushing that program. I understand that Valley County has recently approved this as well. So others are looking at this as a valuable tool for economic development in their communities. We're certainly not first, and we can certainly learn from those that have helped blaze the trail. So I'm interested in continuing the conversation and getting these questions answered.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Taylor.
Maybe Chris and Jacob, if I can just ask you another question, I'll just gonna go back to the feed. From the projects you have worked on, if there's a $500 application fee and a cap of $50,000 as a percentage of the servicing fee, is that, from what you've seen in other states, I don't know what the statutes say in other states, where are we in the sort of the ballpark? Does that seem in line with what you've seen? Is that kind of tracking where other states have been? And does that seem a reasonable structure, sort of as far as having a cap on the program?
Definitely reasonable having a cap on the program. And what we've seen, again, from an application fee, that $250 to $500, that seems fair because there is, that there is some work that goes on there, a little bit of work, not a lot. And then in terms of, so there's a servicing fee that is much smaller than that $50,000 cap. This would be more of a program administration fee that is paid upon close of the financing. And that's the 1% capped at the $50,000. So if you put that into perspective from, and the programs that we have worked with or know about that charge a percentage, either a straight percentage with a cap or some sort of a kind of a staircase with a cap. A $10 million PACE financing, you'd be looking at a $100,000 fee there, but it would be capped. No, a $10,000 fee, excuse me. It's been a long day. And so, and that, those fees, all fees are capitalized. So, where we've seen programs kind of misstep, I would say, is to not have a cap and to try to recoup in the first 2 or 3 deals, all of the quote unquote time and expenses, which is very 50 hours, I think, Curtis, you were saying, that it took to set the program up. So the first 2 or 3 users of the program would disproportionately pay for setting up the program. So I think that's the misstep that we see. But most cities and councils are very fair and pragmatic, and what's equitable, with the understanding that once the program's up and running, that you've got the ability to step back and take a look and say, are we still comfortable with this fee schedule, or do we need to augment it?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Taylor.
Yeah, I'll just kind of share some of my thoughts here. This is really helpful, Chris and Jacob and Curtis. I really appreciate the follow-up. This has been really what I was looking for, to kind of get some deeper insight as to kind of how the program works and some of the financing structure, maybe the opportunity. Yeah, I like the conversation. I think it's going in a favorable direction. I think I'm inclined to want to continue that and see, see that it maybe we find ourselves doing something here. I am very interested. I think Councilwoman Strader's point about this is for a project, that's one discussion, or if this is, hey, there's some interest for, there's several in the pipeline, but of course, we also know that there's opportunities for things that are yet unforeseen that may come down the road because this opportunity is there. So yeah, I like where this conversation is going, assuming we find a sweet spot to kind of put some things in place to make sure that we're not devoting a lot of time and resources, that we're not recapturing some of that here in the city.
I guess unless you want to come back and have another conversation with Curtis, at this point in time, it would either be start working towards it, or we can let this sit and come back and have another conversation. Unless there's additional information that people outside of saying what's the pipeline, and we can help identify that to a certain extent, but that's where I think where we're sitting, where we're prepared to start going down the road and engage is where we see the need is. And maybe the one thing that is ultimately an ordinance resolution that needs to be done at the end of the creation of the program. Is that when that occurs, Curtis?
Yeah, so walking you through the steps, we would, if we decided to move forward, I would start working on the program documents, which involves a lot of the ancillary forms that go along with when you check the box, and the application forms and things of that nature. That's going to take some time. That would all come back to the city council for approval. And there is, I believe, a resolution and possibly an ordinance that needs to be approved to adopt the program and make it the city of Meridian. So each city, local government, county, whoever's going to do this has to go through their own process to codify it for their use. So that would be the formal approval of the process.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilwoman Schrader.
I think the components that I would need to be comfortable approving that final resolution or whatever is kind of at the end of the yellow brick road here for us would be the pipeline, the application and servicing fee structure and rationale of why it covers our costs, which I think is the critical work that you all would be doing next. And then I think at that point, those would be the key components that we would need to move forward. So I think you just need a strong rationale. I don't think you have to be 100%. I agree. Once the program's up and running, you can tweak it. We can look at it. The maybe one additional component, I think I understand, like, I think we're all on the same page, but I think I would want a more granular understanding of any non-performance risk that the city would have. Are there actions that if we did or did not take would give us legal exposure from either the PACE lender or the senior lender? And it could be that that's an easy answer. Like all you need to do is file your tax lien or whatever. Like I'm sure that it's a pretty discrete set of actions we need to take, but that would be kind of the third thing I'd want to understand maybe on a more granular level. Is there any non-performance risk that the city would have where we could get sued by someone because we did not take or did take certain actions, and what are those? I think on a more granular level. So I'm totally great with moving it forward and working on it, but those are the three things I would need to understand.
Okay.
Yeah, we can, would it be helpful? I think Chris offered up to bring a developer in and actually have that conversation? Assuming we could get one to come in?
Yeah. I think if we could bring in three to talk about the value benefit that they see or something of that nature as compared to one to say, here's my projects that I don't know, that I'm weary on one hand of asking people to come in and start talking, depending on what type of projects they are,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I'm so sorry to interrupt here.
Yes, Chris.
The what I would propose is to have a conversation. I think most people know this group. I think everybody does. And they would have a conversation with you, but coming in and having three developers, a lot of developers don't want to talk about how they're capitalizing their projects in public necessarily. And so I think whatever the best line of communication would be, where I could make an introduction to somebody that you know in the community there that has multiple projects, and then they would also know peers of theirs who are doing developments as well. And then maybe the last thing I'll say, and Jacob and I have done this where we do a lot of just education. So when programs are kind of launched initially, I'm happy to, come to town and sit down and do a kind of a PACE 101. And Jacob, I'm gonna corral you into doing this as well, where where we invite the folks that have projects that could use the financing, and we see that as a good kind of community benefit at times.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Taylor.
it's my sense that I think we're all we're moving in the same direction where we want to see this move ahead. I'm not sure that we need another conversation for more information, as much as I think some of the information we have, I think we can receive that through, some emails or phone calls or conversations that I don't think need to be done in front of the public in terms of having developers come in and disclose all these projects they're working on. We understand, the need for them to have that, to work through those things. Unless there's an objection to that, really, I think these questions could be answered for the most part, for me at least, with just some informal communications and sharing that and sitting down with some of our folks to just give me a better sense of that. I don't need another informational discussion in this type of setting for me to feel like I'm satisfied. I'm pretty much, 95% of the way there with questions answered, that, assuming there may be some more questions, but I don't see why there's a reason why Curtis needs to stand up here again with more questions that can't be answered sort of just one off or in some informal discussions. That's my thought on this. And so, but I don't think there's a rush. So I don't want to say we have to act and move this along quickly. We want to make this done the right way. So I think in just terms of moving along, that's kind of how I would view a productive way to do this.
Yeah. All right.
Very well.
Thank you, Curtis.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Council, we're at the end of our agenda. Do I have a motion?
Mayor,
Councilman
motion to adjourn.
Motion second to adjourn. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. We are adjourned.